Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, keep coping, leftoids, because it seems the verdict is in, and the verdict is no shift. Oh, lefties have been hoping and lefties have been coping that the Supreme Court abortion ruling is everything they needed and more. But folks, we've been covering every single element of the polling data basically since May 4th, when the draft decision was initially leaked to the media. And I don't know, lefties, at this point you just seem delusional and desperate. 2 months saying the same thing, regurgitating the same talking points, like a damn broken record. 2 months and the dial has not shifted. At this point, you just gotta call it. Abortion is not the election issue the Democrats thought they had. And selectively picking NPR, PBS, Marist polls and Politico/Morning Consult polls, which didn't even shift, and the ones that did shifted by 1 point, taking those two outlier polls and ignoring everything else, well, that is not political science and data analysis. That's what we call coping Twitter leftists. And that's exactly what they're doing, folks. The left is losing, and let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so this is a continuation from the previous polling analysis video that I made where we covered specifically the NPR, PBS, Marist, and Politico Morning Consult polls that Democrats were sharing all over Twitter, suggesting that the tide has turned and Democrats are somehow going to win a massive upset victory. What I said in that video is that this is not evidence of a political shift. These are outlier polls that are showing the same thing that they were showing for the last 2 months. And the way they're collecting data is completely skewed to the left-wing side, and the data that they're suggesting just doesn't fall in line with what everyone else is showing, hence they're outliers. And what I mentioned was we have to wait and see for a couple more polls to be released, waiting for the new Rasmussen poll, a Trafalgar poll, or maybe some other left-wing polls, and then we'll be able to really get a better idea as to whether or not there is an actual shift. And well, friends, today seems to be that day. Take a look right over here. We now have 4 polls that have been released since those 2 Democrat bias outlier polls, or you can call them push polls, whatever you want to call them. And this is exactly what I was saying in the intro. Coping leftoids. No shift. We covered the Economist/YouGov poll in the previous video, which actually shows Democrats performing worse after the abortion ruling than the prior numbers released in May. And now we have Rasmussen showing the exact same number with a Republican +5 lead. We have Emerson showing the exact same number, a +3 Republican lead. And we have the most recent Harvard-Harris poll, which is one of the worst Democrat-skewed bias polls out there. Well, Joe Biden's approval rating was tanking in the low 40% for months. Harvard-Harris was showing Biden sticking in the 50s and in the high 40s, and it took 4 or 5 months for their numbers to finally reach reality. Well, now even the Democrat bias Harvard-Harris is showing the same thing. No shift. Harvard-Harris has been showing a tie between Republicans and Democrats for the last 3 months. There is no evidence, I repeat, no evidence. Geraldo Rivera from Fox News, the biggest clown on Fox News since Juan William left, are you listening? No shift. Republicans still maintain the exact same lead, even post Dobbs' decision. It's just not happening. There's only one thing that could save Democrats right now, and it's not something I'm going to mention. It's not something I even want to entertain. I'm not going to get that black-pilled. I'm going to continue to be optimistic, and I'm basically going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say a single thing extra. The whole situation for Democrats is just too far gone. And speaking of far gone, and the reason why, Democrats are far gone, is of course far gone Joe Biden, whose brain went to buy cigarettes one morning and never came back home. And also speaking of the most recent Harvard-Harris polling data, Joe Biden's still in the gutter. The most recent Harvard-Harris poll has Joe Biden at 38% approval with 57% disapproving. Folks, that's Harvard-Harris. What that means is over the last year, Joe Biden, specifically in Harvard-Harris polling data, has gone from 60% approval rating down to 38. That is a 22-point tank. And this idea that Democrats stand a chance in the 2022 midterms with a Democrat president whose average approval rating sits at 38%, if you believe that, then I have a bridge to sell you. This guy has become so deeply unpopular. I'm seeing numbers I have never seen before. The same concept I always mention, that Joe Biden is shattering historic precedent. The guy is breaking records in all of the wrong ways. Take a look at this data that was just released by Gallup. Satisfaction with the US direction. Basically, right track, wrong track. Donald Trump's first term, June 2018, right before the midterm elections where Democrats won a sweeping victory. 38% of the people polled believed the country was headed in the right direction. 62% thought the country was on the wrong track. As I've mentioned many times before, two of the leading indicators for predicting midterm victories are presidential approval rating and right track, wrong track polling data. Of course, generic congressional ballot data helps as well, but two of the most important factors are presidential approval and wrong track data. So in 2018, when Democrats won a sweeping victory in the House, during the midpoint of Donald Trump's first term in office, only 62% of Americans polled thought the country was headed in the wrong direction, and Donald Trump's approval rating was significantly higher than Joe Biden's. Joe Biden right now, as of June 2022, as you guys can see on the screen, 87% of Americans asked, of Americans surveyed in this Gallup poll, believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. 87%. 90%, with only 13% of people polled, believe the country is headed in the right direction. I mean, we are talking about disaster. We also have a new poll that's showing that 71% of voters do not want Biden to run again in 2024. 70%. And guess where this polling data is from? The most recent Harvard-Harris poll. Joe Biden's favorite polling outlet, the same polling outlet that not even a year ago, maybe 7, 8, 9 months ago, had Joe Biden's approval rating at around 58 to 60%, has completely flipped on its head, and now Joe Biden is the most deeply unpopular president in modern American history. There's no shift. You know, Joe Biden's tried his new campaigning message, which is trying to make a, quote, exception to the filibuster to get Roe v. Wade codified. An empty political platitude that means nothing, is not going to happen. I mean, I don't even know what that means, an exception to the Senate filibuster. His desperate attempt to try to make it seem like he's going to do something to codify Roe, an issue that only 7% of the American populace view as an important issue headed into the election. Well, that's just not going to work. That's not going to turn the ship around for Democrats, especially not after we just got the most recent GDP numbers, or GDP Now prediction numbers from the Atlanta Fed, showing a negative 2.1% contraction in the second quarter of 2022, meaning we're currently at a very high likelihood of a recession in the next 30 days being announced, and with probably or possibly horrendous CPI numbers to be released this month, probably in the next 2 weeks. The idea that Joe Biden's empty promise to codify Roe v. Wade is going to change anything, or that the most recent SCOTUS decision is going to be a relevant factor in people's decision making when it comes to voting in the 2022 midterms, when the US and frankly global economies are about to enter a massive recession, well, the whole concept is laughable. Twitter lefties, you guys are coping. You're delusional. You're living on another planet. It's just not going to happen. That's what I got for you guys, though. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I'm going to get back to work, though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.